This episode of Life Accelerated is brought to you by Equisoft, a leading global provider of end-to-end cloud-based solutions with deep domain expertise in the life insurance industry. To learn more, visit equisoft.com.
And I think I'm really excited about what AI can do for our company. I think it's going to allow us to be even more competitive with big guys and all their human capital, right? We're going to be able to answer our customers' calls even faster and accurately every time, still with a human touch.
I'm Olivier Lafontaine, and this is Life Accelerated, the podcast for life insurance leaders focused on driving meaningful change through technology, process, and partnership. This special episode features a live recording from Equisoft's Summer Summit. In this session, I'm joined by two industry leaders who bring a practical and behind-the-scenes perspective on how artificial intelligence and innovation are shaping our industry. Our first guest is Darwin Larrison, the VP and Chief Information Security Officer at Modern Woodmen of America, where he leads with intentionality, especially with his approach to AI governance and vendor adoption. Our second guest is Amanda Turcotte, Chief Actuary at Amalgamated Life Insurance Company. She shares her actuarial expertise and insurtech experience, including how they use tools like Amazon Q to boost efficiency and enhance the customer experience. All in all, we cover licensing challenges, internal education strategies, sentiment analysis, and CRM enhancements. Finally, we learn how both companies balance innovation and compliance. So let's get right into it.
So for this session, I'm very happy because I don't have to come up with the intelligent thoughts. It's going to be my colleagues here from the insurance companies. And I'm sure these were not your first ever AI sessions. There's always all sorts of thoughts. But what's going to be interesting in the next 45 minutes to an hour is we're going to hear from people who work in actual insurance companies and how they think about stuff, which is always interesting. So let's start with introduction. Again, Olivier Lafontaine. Then we have Darwin, or let's start with Amanda. Maybe go ahead, maybe tell us who you are and who you work for.
Sure. Amanda Turcotte. I'm Chief Actuary at Amalgamated Life Insurance Company. That's a small little insurance company in the state of New York, but we're issue business nationwide. I've been at Amalgamated for almost 9 months now. Prior to that, I was actually an insurtech for about 8 years. I left AXA Equitable, where I was head of product pricing and underwriting for group benefits, and co-founded two companies, two startups, raised a couple of rounds of funding, had a consulting practice that catered to insurtechs, and then decided to come back to corporate, which has been really, really lovely over the past 9 months.
Awesome.
Hello, everybody. Darwin Larrison, Chief Information Security Officer and Vice President, Modern Woodmen of America. We're based out of Rock Island, Illinois, and I've explained the Quad Cities probably 6 times, so I'm not going to say Quad Cities anymore, but they're part of the Quad Cities. So just real quickly, prior to Modern Woodmen, I've been there 8 years probably now. Prior to that was 2 years at Unity Point Health, and I don't know, we had like 5 or 6 hospitals then. And then prior to that, with FBL Financial, and I don't even think they're a publicly traded company anymore, but it's Farm Bureau. Most people refer to the Farm Bureaus. Out of West Des Moines, I was with them probably 15 years for my first IT job.
Awesome. And we have an interesting mix. So we'll have the actuarial side and the security side, if you were going to have some interesting thoughts from the both ends of the spectrum. So let's start in the thick of things. So can you describe your company's overall approach to AI? Progress? So you started certain projects? Have you finished certain projects? So maybe we start with Darwin.
Okay, I thought about this question, and I would say cautious and deliberate. And it's because we're an insurance company. And what are the benefits of being cautious and deliberate and also working in information security / compliance? Even though it's another department, it's hand in hand or hand in glove, whatever you want to say. Cautious and deliberate keeps you from stubbing your toes and making mistakes, etc. So insurance companies have traditionally been slower in adopting technologies. They let them bake. By letting them bake, you tend to have things go a little better, allegedly. But in this case, and I thought this was super interesting because it was so validated in the previous excellent presentations that I just saw. I felt like 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm not sure the exact timeline, when the OpenAI / Microsoft partnership got dropped, and it felt like it was dropped in my lap. what happened was, it opened to the outside world, and we had a local company that actually had some employees put in some private information or information they shouldn't put in there. They were terminated because that is a company that has a lot of secret information, but it really did happen in a public AI model. So anyway, that pressure's down. And the other thing they said was, and the interesting thing is that there's not a lot of security mechanisms anymore, or right now, controls. They're in place now, but they are. But anyway, that starts. Where we got lucky was it came in with OpenAI, or where it really blew up was with OpenAI and Microsoft's partnership. And it went into what we always say, our walled garden, but our subscription. So we kind of got to adopt it rather quickly and allegedly safely, even though it was very uncomfortable. We were able to use the Copilots, and that was within Word, within Outlook, etc. If you had the right license, which is something that I learned, that not everybody gets a license because licenses are expensive, but we can talk about that later. So I'll stop here right now on this just to say somehow through that and through having to send out emails says don't put our private or confidential information into public AI. That was the first control, etc. And then I had to learn. And anyway, I kind of run the governance program at our company. So, and through that, I'd had to learn. And that's what I've been doing. Our company now has probably 30 plus AI infused. They'll say augmented. I like infused too. AI infused applications. So the vendors have been bringing in AI, and we've been basically approving them if they can answer certain questions through our governance process. We're also doing some initiatives that we'll talk more about later, I think, probably. But yeah, so was it buy, rent, build, or blend? Is this something that they say? We're definitely a blended shop. Amanda.
Yeah, so I think like a lot of insurance companies, large and small, we're definitely on the smaller end of the spectrum, right? The thought of going to InsurTech Connect out in Las Vegas in 2022, or even now to InsurTech Insights here in New York in 2025, right? There are hundreds of vendors that have widgets that are impossible for a small company to fit them all. And similar to what you were saying, we rely on our large vendor platforms, whether it's AWS, whether it's Salesforce, Microsoft, just like you were saying earlier, how you're embedding AI tools in the product that you're providing insurance carriers. And we really appreciate that vetting process. So whereas, I think there was an opportunity, probably maybe not safely, to start just loading any and every AI tool back in 2021, 2022 by saying, we might be a little bit later on the pathway. We're really leveraging the research that a lot of our vendors have put into AI. What are the appropriate tools for our company to start bringing those to our colleagues?
Good stuff. And if we talk about specific technologies or tools, you have a couple examples. Maybe we start with Amanda since you had
this is hot potato now.
Yeah, I think we're going to go with two.
Yeah, exactly.
So specific tools and examples of things that you've done and, how that worked out.
This is where I have my cheat sheet. So we are really starting our journey more in our customer facing or part of the organization. So in customer service, we're leveraging Amazon Q in our call centers. So that allows our representatives. So we don't have AI speaking to customers directly, but it allows our call center reps to be so much more efficient because rather than scrolling through hundreds of documents and correspondence could have been passed back and forth between our company and the client over years of a contract. Now that these AI tools can filter through those quickly and allow the representative to give answers to clients faster and really improve that customer experience. And we're also leveraging the Amazon intelligent document processing, right, which allows us to just ingest the mountains of unstructured data that insurance carriers receive daily in a really efficient way and categorize those much better.
And is this something that you've completed? Are you in the process of viewing it? Is it starting?
And not completely finished.
Okay. So would it be more like a POC as far as you could tell? Or would you call it POC? Or is this a proper project that is going for?
Yeah, I'd say beyond POC, right? So deploy, but still in early.
Okay, good. Sorry. Any specific tools?
Yep. Non-vendor, vendors are helping, but we're using CRM, and we had a big project. So our big one thing that we are working on and building is related to our CRM. And it's also an online system. It also related to that third party I mentioned earlier, and I'm not trying to go off on a vendor, but that's what it is. Big platform. And so we had a big project related to data and getting the data ready and pulling it from the various data stores around the company, because it's all over the place and varies killer apps from the 1970s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, etc. Pulled it all in, Customer 360 project, pretty good name. And so that's now the source of truth is customers, who are the number one users of it, not the customers, but our salespeople, our sales force throughout the country. And so there's tools being built that they're not earth-shaking, but boy, are they just obvious. Hey, this person's a great potential prospect for cross-selling or something, or just all kinds of stuff related to data on our customers or about our customers to help our sales reps. And then there's a bunch of efficiency things with that too, which is taking notes, or when they make a call, it listens to the calls, did not record the calls, but make notes from if they sent them a change of address form or something, and it makes notes for the reps so they don't have to make those notes. But that's kind of that. And there's a couple other things they're doing within there related to the CRM. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but it's all CRM related. All sounds great. The rest of it has been, just like I said, kind of the Copilots and stuff. And you'd think that I would want to use Security Copilot, but I'm not using it yet because I don't want to pay it for it yet. I got a new young person just out of college, and I want him to be able to learn how to do tickets and investigations, and not just to be able to take him from college and put him into a system that's going to let him use his scripting and things like that for a while to solidify his knowledge before let AI do his job and let him or her, the persons, move up in their positions or go to a different type of position, security prompt engineer or something, or whatever's going to happen. But that's basically, it's vendors coming in, augmenting systems. It is us buying some one-offs, but that's been very few. It seems like, or renting. It's more renting, not buying, renting or leasing or whatever. And then sure.
Out of curiosity, anybody else is battling with this issue of licenses and determining is everyone in the company getting a license? It's expensive to get everyone in the company. Sanjay, yes?
Yeah, like stated before, I agree with the Copilot, but deployed it, but it is very expensive. And here's the Microsoft Copilot that I'm referring to. Yeah. And you have to be, I guess, sensible to gain enough traction and start to see the value before it could be broadly worked out. So we're selectively giving it to certain pockets so that they can be the early OLED users that can go to then speed champions and find new spaces so that it becomes more compelling. Can
I add something? So our strategy for the licensing has been squeaky wheels strategy is what I'm calling it. That means when somebody calls up and says, can I use Grok? Can I use this? Can I use that? I say, well, I use Copilot. Well, they don't have a full license. So, that's what was happening with me. And I'm like, how come I don't know this, that they don't have a full license like I do? And that's a whole other story. Long story short, squeaky wheel gets a license because they've got a good use case and they're already doing it. Then we give them Copilot and they say, you know what? That's not bad. Whether it's been code generation or whatever the other use case was. When was the actuary? Are you actuary?
Yeah.
What was an actuary? Right, I thought you were,
you did the pricing instead of the actuary. Yeah. That is perfect.
So we gave them the license, but that is an issue, and it's a darn shame. One thing I want to say was been working with Limmer Loma on the security for AI thing, which is intimidating to do, but I get a ton of research, and guess what I use? AI, and it was awesome because it's a very complex subjects. It puts it what I call a middle level of understanding. You know how it's notorious for bullets and everything, but it gives you everything you need to go to the next level. And so I'm a huge fan. Our reps also love the email, where it'll regen their email. I now look like a PhD in English via email and Word documents. When I write performance appraisals and everything, I look like a PhD in writing.
Did you notice an increase in rent of emails over the last year or so? Like all of a sudden, these gigantic...
Mine is all smaller. Are you kidding me? Oh, yeah. It totally eliminates. It gets you right to the root. It eliminates number attacked big time.
But I feel like a lot of companies are battling a little bit with measuring adoption or value out of Copilot, or we use Claude. We actually use both, and that's a challenge in itself. There are some people use ChatGPT and so on and so forth, but you give the license to people, it costs, I forget what, typically like $40 a month or something. You have to take it for the whole year. They all have pretty much the same model. Then next thing you know, you have 400 users with this $40 a month. It's a pretty expensive proposition. Have you been able to like measure value other than just saying, yeah, it's really useful. It writes my email better and stuff?
No, it's anecdotal. It is totally anecdotal. Now, I shouldn't say that. I would get in trouble with the Limmerloma brethren because they did create an ROI mechanism and stuff. Honestly, my job at the governance and compliance groups, the stuff that I'm running, I'm not doing the ROI thing, and I'm purposely trying to stay out of that. That's somebody else's battle to fight because I don't run the AI strategy. But I will tell you that I'm very interested because I want the ROI. And the ROI is anecdotal. It's me standing up here going, man, it's cool. How it redirects my emails, how it does my word, how it helped me research massive amounts of information and giving me, helping me to learn stuff fast. It's just going to change everything. But, no. Nothing yet. Didn't hope.
And out of curiosity, Amanda, have you guys deployed any AI tool like widespread to everyone? Is it on the squeaky wheel, gets the license?
Not like a Copilot or anything. That is still on a squeaky wheel basis. I'm a squeaky wheel. It's great.
Yeah.
Did you get through in the end? Did you get your license?
Yeah, I have my Copilot license, which is not as cool as a pilot's license. I think some of the return is almost immeasurable. You were talking I was talking in the prior session about how AI is going to, or has the opportunity to help us continue to do the work we do every day, even as we have a wave of retirees and real insurance experts leaving our industry. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for our industry. Well, I think one of the real opportunities is to start recording and transcribing every single Teams call we have, because there is so much information that is transmitted in these Teams calls that is never recorded if you're taking notes. However, then when you're using Copilot to say like, hey, how was our policy admin system manage a termination that was 3 months ago and we just got notice of it today? Well, guess what? You had a discussion on that, or somebody else had a discussion on that 3 months ago, right? So what's the return on that? Well, now we have the opportunity to have consistent company processes and, not have regulatory issues. We have a faster training of new employees. We have the opportunity to set up agentic agents who can learn from those transcriptions, right? So, but that is very challenging to measure and say like, what's my return? It really is more of a, I think, investment, and we'll see the return in the future as we build this trove of data, I guess.
Or probably measure that you're losing ground if you don't do it.
Right. Yes, exactly. That's not.
However, I think what's interesting, what I think we'll see, some vendors are at least giving you tools to measure who's using. Like you can't tell what's their value, but at least knowing if you've given licenses to people, it'd be nice to know that they're using it.
That's a good correction. I did say nothing. We do have the ability, and I can get into it later if we talk about security and compliance and Overwatch and things like that. We do see what people are using, and not funny story, but a pretty good story related to that. An eye-opening story, how much people were using unauthorized AI after we said no. What? Yeah, they were. Anyway, we do get that. We could see the prompts. We could see the usage and everything.
So at the very least, if you can assume that if they're using it, they must be getting some value out of it. So that's at least range.
Unless it was some goofy, there were some of that too. The goofy AIs had nothing to do with business.
All right. So if we move on to the next question, I think we're going to probably we're not going to do all the questions, but I think we want this to be interactive. So please interject if you want to. And we've talked about the results a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit or ask you about how do you feel about the rapid pace of change of those tools? So we talked about Microsoft Copilot is kind of the obvious one. Everybody uses the Microsoft suite. It's there, the little pink, whatever is the name of that icon. Pretty obvious. People get some value out of it. Now, there's hundreds of these vendors that you're going to see InsurTech Insights in Las Vegas, or if you go to any conference or you Google it. How do you even keep track of that? And if you ask any of those AI tools to tell you which are the trending technologies, every month you get a different list of vendors. So what are some strategies that you can use to kind of keep your head above the water in terms of, evaluating the potential for these things, choosing to license them or not, short of the squeaky wheel, and then educating? We talked about this in the preparation. How do you educate people around the possibilities out there?
I will try to be succinct here. We did a very good job of, I believe, creating a governance program. And that's how we kind of do this. And I'll explain it real quickly, as quickly as I can. Got a group together, got permission to do it, started an AIGG, IA governance group, and we just started kind of skunk working a process. Members of that: legal, compliance, vendor management, IT, information security. And through that, especially the vendor management, we're able to inject our requirements to our people. When they request AI use cases, they get a form, they fill it out. We went and had a young person from IT go off to learn and get certified in AI governance or AI whatever. So we could call him an AI expert. So they fill out these forms, the initial forms, and then he does more in depth, and he has a little graph and he says where he thinks he's at on a risk level. The risk level has to do with customer impact or employee impact, and those are negative impacts. And that has to do with the fairness or whatever you want to say. So anyway, we built a really nice program. Anything that's rated high as a control plan, and those are all online things that are filled out and we assist with. Very good policy written by the lawyers in compliance mostly. I wrote about a third of it, then I backed away and let them have fun. But it's very good, I think. It will survive auditability. But we have to be strict about not using AI that's not authorized. So that tool I talked about that monitors AI usage blocks. So basically we have one big giant block list by default, and then we whitelist things that we approve, and then we track them. And changes and things like that, the main tracker of it is our enterprise architect group. And they're kind of in charge at tracking versions and everything. They have a special software. So that's another one of those where I say, you got it, thank you very much. Because I feel like I'm hurting cats enough. The ROI and things like that's the business people, the people asking for it. They have to justify to their boss who goes up the chain and whatnot. I just, security, compliance, and governance, and making sure AI is keeping our data safe. And that's all I have to really worry about.
So that's in the control, which obviously in your position, that's going to be the main thing. Yet if I was to ask, in your view, who in the company comes up with the use cases? Brian talked about this in the previous presentation. Like, use cases are key. Is it your CFO? Is it your chief actuary? Is it your people in the field? Like, who comes up with those requests, the use cases? Who is sort of I'm sure you have to have some people that have more interest than others.
I think the vendors do a lot of that. And they come and they say, we got this new thing, and this is going to do this for you. And they say that to the managers that kind of own the application or the application relationship. So a lot of vendors do that. They sell that AI type product to us. As far as
Microsoft, for example.
How is that? Yeah, Microsoft, but all those other ancillary, when I say 30 things, or 30 plus, maybe 40 now, of the augmented, those are all different types of apps. Anyway, it mainly comes from, I believe, vendors contacting, hey, we got a hot new whatever feature. And that's literally what they call them in the AI world, building features out of their models. And that's the one thing. And then our own IT/architecture people are kind of, it is funny, but they kind of try to help and talk and interface with the field, the salespeople. Mm-hmm. We can't just build AI bots and things like that if we don't know if they really want what the reps want. That would be like malpractice. Our people are called reps instead of agents. They're called reps. If we didn't, it'd be like malpractice. We have to have them lead what would be most beneficial to you, and that's how it happens.
Obviously, having a secret plan to sell you an additional tool probably as well, but that's part of how it works, right? Yes, 100%. Amanda, seeing from that, so that's more from the IT perspective. I feel you might have a business perspective to this.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to share an anecdote, not from our company, but from the company I worked for a hot minute. Prior, I was a reinsurance broker with Guy Carpenter for a little bit before I found my home at Amalgamated. And I was really impressed of how
Marsh McLennan was rolling out AI education in their company. So they had essentially 3 tiers of education for available to every single employee in the company. The first is about an hour-long learning on AI, right? You watch a little video online, you learn about AI, what tools are available to you, mostly embedded within Microsoft, right? But a lot of governance and what not to do and putting, sensitive data online, that type of thing. You get a little badge that you could put on the bottom of your email. But then employees...
Sorry to interrupt. Was it more like on the security side or also what you can do?
What you can't do as well as security, right? Like bit of balanced discussion for like our video. Then employees could self-select to go to the level 2 learning, which gave you a little bit more information for about 5 hours with interactive learning and more tests and things like that to give you more insight. So those are for the people that are actually interested. Again, employees are self-selecting. So it's not like management is saying like, here's going to be my AI SME or for my department, or this is going to be my AI leader, which like we said are often the squeaky wheels. But the squeaky wheels are not always the best individual to like lead and have the creative solutions on what can really drive impact in organizations. And then there was a level 3, which was like, well, like, hey, I would like to get an undergraduate degree in AI, or not actually, but it was a pretty intense course where you're going into more of the, IT technical bits. And I didn't do that. So full disclaimer, but it really gave a lot of technical background. And again, available to anyone. You didn't have to be a technologist in order to, self-select into learning more about AI and how you could deploy it in the company. And I think what that gave is opportunities for, and this is where the world is going, for every role to be a technology role, every role to be an AI role, right? And to incorporate those skills more broadly throughout the company. And, another aspect of that is, when you have AI that's embedded in a system, they're giving you an underwriting platform empowered with AI. They're giving you a sales platform empowered with AI. But really, what AI is, it's like a widget. It's a building block. It's a Lego brick, right? We have a lot of Lego bricks within our technology tools. There are text generation widgets. There are, like visual display widgets. And that's how, technology is built, like brick by brick. And, I think that's not necessarily how everybody's brain works, is like, how do I solve this puzzle by putting little different Lego bricks together?
That's how programmers do it.
That's how programmers do it, right? And honestly, I feel like video games are going that way now too. Like if you think about Minecraft, like my kids are playing, right? It's not like, hey, here's a linear story and follow this linear story and do these linear things. It's like, hey, you've had this whole world and you can create something. What do you want to do? And you're going to come up with challenges in this world and use these widgets in your toolkit to attack the challenges in your own way, right? So I think the more that we can give those AI self-selected users access to the widgets to solve the problems that they have in the business world, the more we're going to find those creative solutions that don't just do the things that our technology currently does faster, right? Because right now technology is really like you have technology that does some part of the process, and then we have humans that are doing a large part of the process. But that's where you have that opportunity to say like, hey, some of the stuff that humans are doing every day right now, we can use a widget and like replace it.
It comes from the business, somebody in the business. But I love the idea of the self-selected training program at different levels. That's amazing.
I really like that.
You may not know this, but do you have any visibility in terms of how successful or how popular it was? Like, was there a lot of people that went on to it on that?
Sure. I'm sure that's what MMC folks said. It sure take insights smart.
Really interesting to find out. That's one of the things also where not everybody, if you're making mandatory, we found out with a couple of companies, if you're making mandatory for everyone, maybe everyone will do first level, but a lot of people will just not really catch on to it or not have, maybe their brains is not wired in that way. It's not for them. They don't really see the point and stuff. But if you self-select for the next level, then you eventually identify people that can do it.
So not everybody does Wordle everywhere. separate times.
So if we talk a bit more about challenges, perhaps without, obviously, you're going to want to be careful about your own challenges, but is there something you can talk about in terms of more difficult aspects, either one here?
Well, I'll talk about one in particular, which I think is really interesting. And like I mentioned earlier, I think every call should be transcribed, and we should keep that data in our organization. Like, that's our IP, our organization. But there is a lot of fear around recording and transcribing our calls, right? We don't like it when we're on the phone with a customer service rep. The little recording says at first, this call may be transcribed for training purposes. Right? I don't like hearing that. And nobody likes hearing that at the beginning of a Teams call either. But especially when you have management who doesn't like hearing that at the beginning of a Teams call, a lot of those recordings get shut off. And then all that data is lost. I analogize this to, say, the first time I got my parents a cell phone. Right? I'm not saying that this is not an age thing, but it's like when you get somebody a cell phone who's never used a cell phone before and doesn't see the point, right? And had a cell phone plan. There's lots of benefit to taking your cell phone with you when you leave the house, but I not be able to get in touch with my mom for 8 hours. And then she's like, oh, I didn't charge my cell phone. I left it at home. Like, well, you have a tool. The tool has a purpose, right? If you get lost, if you get stuck on the side of the road, this is an important tool to have. It's not part of your habit. You're not comfortable with I have to now remember this thing. I put it in my purse. Back in the early 2000s, it was a little heady. This is a pain. And so there's a lot of friction that doesn't fit with our normal way of doing business that I think is going to take time to overcome. So I think that's
My teenagers don't forget their phones anywhere. They're never out of batteries.
It's such an important thing as a technology vendor when you're going through an implementation as well. If you're on a call with a client and requirements gathering, scope creep, and how things can change, it really, if you have that transcription and if you have that recorded, it keeps people on track.
Oh, definitely. Now, I mean, I have been the typist many times for requirements gathering. You better be fast or that's something.
That opens an interesting dilemma. Now, when you talk, so it's one thing to record your calls internally between management and employees of your company. What happens when the call is happening with other third parties? And now, how do you feel? Have you had this debate? How do I feel about that? Can you share? Can you record those calls with, let's say, one of these industry analysts? They're nice people, but then they record the call on their side. And you're telling all your deepest secrets. Is that okay?
It prompted, so I'll join a third-party call, and there's a prompt says you agree to be recorded. And I've said no before. It depends on what it is. And really, there's zero, if it's a negotiation, I just don't see a benefit. I don't like it, personally. Now, do I think it absolutely is 100% there? Totally. As people take call, it's great. Note taking, I think, or transcription is fantastic. I think you do have to, for legal reasons, after 90 days, but you can have it be learned, that information learned, and then dispose of it, whatever your data retention policy is. But that's, people get concerned. That's why the execs get concerned, because all their chats are going to be pulled into a lawsuit. But if there's a way to have it learned, that chat, key information, but not key bad information. Yeah. I want to go to what the challenges, because I do find it interesting because I get feedback back. When this first started 2 or 3 years ago, it was dropped in our lap. It has turned out to be a good thing. It was a little annoying, but it was also exciting. Okay, review done. Now today, we got starting to get the controls. The controls that we're lacking is people are asking for third-party AI usage, okay? Actuary wanted to use, I don't remember if it was Brock or what it was, what the model was. And we can't say yes, even though we say don't put our private data. It's not a trust thing. You just can't. It's not appropriate. I wouldn't be professional. We wouldn't be professional because it wouldn't be respectful or right for our members, which we call our customers members. And so you got to wait until we have a control structure for that. Those controls are now being built to where they do prompt monitoring now, and we're testing that. So we can see what's being put in, and then in like a DLP, data leakage protection technology, or whatever you call DLP, but data leakage protection, let's go with that. It'll stop if they did see certificate numbers, which are our contract numbers, or some other piece of AI. It'll stop it from going into this public model. It's as simple as that. It's pretty conceptually simple. We're just in the middle of testing all that. But that was the first challenge, was the scariness of losing proprietary data into public AI, which people could do. Then we got the control of, we can see what people are doing now, haha, even what they're typing, haha. So the tools are coming about. We just aren't quite blocking yet. And then once that happens, we can start approving more stuff. Once we prove it is effective and works, and they could go outside of our walls guard and use other AIs.
And so is that a different vendor than that came in, or is part of the
Same vendor,
but they give you tools to monitor it? That's interesting.
entire ecosystem? That's a whole other seminar.
Does you want your shareholders?
Yeah, it's a whole other seminar, but yes, it is from that vendor, and yeah, the whole suite's there pretty much that were, and that's another interesting, y'all. There's a bunch of vendors out there, and I've looked at some of them, and they look fantastic. But I don't want to say, gun to my head, but we are a certain type of shop. When you're in that shop and that vendor offers that product, guess what? They get first look, whether it's stated or not, because there's going to be price breaks. You're using, it's a volume discount. That's what I'm up against. So you got to prove, and it's very difficult to prove that third party is going to be better than the one that's already offered, especially if you're using 80-20. But let's say you say it's security. It's 90-10. So if they do 90%, you got to go with the one that you're already in bed with. Does that make sense? That's where things are at with me anyway. And it's not a bad thing. They're doing okay.
Have you been able to do in your company projects that have an actual impact? You talked a little bit about that, I think, with Amazon Q. So projects that are actually making an impact on the customer experience?
The only thing that I would say relates to that I could think off the top of my head, because I see them all because they come through our process, was a sentiment analysis, which many organizations would consider high risk, because sentiment is judging, and having AI give a score to somebody's attitude on the phone, and whether it's the customer or this customer service rep. So I told you that we have a form we go through, and in there it was customer impact or employee impact. And both those got dinged with sentiment analysis. And on the customer side, the control plan has to state nothing in this information that comes through the scores, only to flag the call to be listened to for training purposes. So we could say, hey, how could you handle this better with this person? It will not be used against the customer, whether, no underwriting will be performed on whether they got mad during this phone call, that kind of stuff. The idea of that stuff. And then on the customer service side, this came from an HR person that was on the committee. She originally brought it up, said, well, are those scores, that scoring going to be used in the person's performance appraisal? And I went, whoa. And this was in the early days of this, when it was really stressful and headache-ridden meetings to figure out how far we go and how deep we go. And she brought that up, and it was like, that was such a fantastic grade coin. And so the control plan says, this data is not going to be used to judge the person's performance or the CSR's performance. It's purely for performance improvement, or training purposes. So yes, that has an effect on the customer, but we aren't going to allow it to affect them as far as judging them negatively. It should only be positive, in that our customer service reps will be able to work with them better. And eventually it'll probably be bots anyway. Just kidding, but not really. It'll be agents, and we all know it.
We don't know what we're going to call it, but certainly there's going to be something. I wanted to ask you in particular, I know you've worked for startups in your past. You said this at the beginning. Do you see a difference in how startups are working with AI, adopting AI, thinking about it? How do you see the difference there between corporate and startup?
Yeah, well, I think startups have a very different problem than a established insurance carrier, right? And an established insurance carrier needs to grow top line revenue by 6% this year, maybe hit a ROE of 12%. A startup that just raised their seed round has to have infinite growth this year, right? And that is the only KPI that matters, right? Whether we get from seed to series 1. But yeah, so anything that we could do to focus all of our energy at a startup on what is going to drive growth and revenue in this company. That's what's the cheapest way that we can get to that goal, because venture dollars are very expensive. We've given away our equity in this company in order to get this cash to fund growth and revenue. So having an AI tool that can help you code faster, that can help you test better, that can democratize, and every member on a startup team has unique information, right? Like, you're there for a reason. One person is there because they're the technologist. The other one is the insurance, specialist. The other one can fundraise and knows what our investors are interested in. So having tools that capture all the information that you can, have it in one wiki and nobody's typing that wiki, right? That all that is auto-generating so that everybody in the company has access to that information. I think that's the top priority. Whereas once you're in the company and have this transformation, right? Like, once you get to a certain size, well, now we have to have controls in place. Now we have existing customers. Now the
real world kicks in.
Right. The dense, right? And that's where established companies live in the real world. It's a different real world. They're both real, but it's just different problems. But yeah, so how you interact with your customers changes, right? And yeah, so I think that really impacts the way both of those organizations sort of approach the AI question.
So I think we'll wrap up maybe with one last question. So if you were to have a crystal ball and try to predict, or what's your thought in terms of, if you look forward to the next couple of years, what's going to happen, at least in your environment, your company and your role? What do you think is going to be the biggest change?
This is dangerous for me to get this on this one, because I watched a lot in 1 minute. So there's a lot of Instagram clips, and there are a lot of knowledgeable people that run AI companies and stuff. And I don't want to say it's scary. It's scary and it's awesome at the same time. And I'm glad I'm alive during it. I do. I'm glad I don't have long for retirement. No, I got a ways for retirement. But I'm just saying that, but I also have sons, and I'm telling them AI. That's what I'm telling them. Information security, sure, but AI flavor information security. 5 years, I think definitely there will be job loss. I don't know if you watched Elon's latest robot video where it's now dancing like a human being, where they've got the joints. 2 years ago, it was like this, it was like automatrons for Disney. Now they're dancing like humans. The other day, I got a Surface device at home. It's my personal one. And I enabled this AI thing, and it said, "Hello, Darwin," in the most pleasant voice. "What can I help you with today?" And I started chatting with this AI. Wife's in the back, and she goes, "Creepy." And the AI goes, "Oh," right back to her. It sounded like it was an attitude. It could be my perception, but it goes, "Oh," like that when she said creepy after it got done speaking. But the reason I tell you that story was this conversation I had was perfect. It was like perfect. I was talking about earbud tips, the little rubber things, and, they're Samsung, and she was just talking back to me, super pleasant, super nice. Okay? So this whole CSR thing I'm talking about, please, 5 years, and so I think that's going to happen. I don't even know if we're ready. And then the other one I saw was the guy who started OpenAI, and I'm forgetting his name right now. His prediction was, we're not ready for what we're going to see in 5 years when we start seeing the robots going down the road. You could totally see personal assistant robots going to pick up people's foods and things like that. So the radical change that's happening right now with robotics, with AI, and even quantum, goodness gracious. I think it's fun and exciting to be alive and having to adapt. Thank goodness. I mean, I kind of enjoy that a little bit. It makes the career interesting. I don't know if that helped.
Yeah. Amanda,
yeah,
your crystal ball, what does your crystal ball say?
I think I'm going to be a little more optimistic. A little bit about our company. Amalgamated was founded in 1943 as a wholly owned subsidiary of one of the largest pension funds in the U.S., union pension funds. At our core, we're a union company. We believe in the power and strength of human work throughout the industry or throughout the nation, right? We exist to serve working Americans and their families. So we really value our human capital at Amalgamated. But again, we are a small company. And with that comes capacity constraints on really what we can do, with the limited resources we have. And I think I'm really excited about what AI can do for our company. I think it's going to allow us to be even more competitive with big guys and all their human capital, right? We're going to be able to answer our customers' calls even faster and accurately every time, still with a human touch. So that when you're having those really challenging times in your life, you're not talking to a bot. You're talking to somebody on the other end of the phone with a heart, with emotions that really connects with you and cares. And I think we're going to continue developing products. The people in our company are going to focus on developing product that fit the unique needs of our chosen target market. And so I think it's just going to allow us to really leverage our mission and serve our clients better.
Darwin and Amanda offered a grounded look at navigating AI adoption and how to balance innovation with the realities of governance, security, and limited resources. What stood out is that progress doesn't always start with flashy tools. It can sometimes be as simple as practical use cases, strong internal controls, and especially a willingness to learn. Whether it's improving customer service with intelligent document processing or setting up guardrails around vendor tools, both Amanda and Darwin showed that change comes from thoughtful execution. Thank you for listening.